Hey there, everybody. So for today, sorry guys. Guess I have a little case of 90s fever. Ah, yes, the 90s. The decade I was born in. Full of awesome stuff like Nintendo 64, the Spice Girls, and indestructible Nokia phones. It was amazing, full of in-your-face fashion and some bomb music. You weren't around for any of that. Of course, how can you not talk about the 90s without talking about the fantastic films that were released? This decade released some of the biggest and most influential movies of all time, like Titanic, The Matrix, Forrest Gump, Toy Story, Terminator 2 Judgment Day with Arnold's bare ass. An absolutely monster decade, no, not you, with loads of hits really bringing cinema to the next level. The movies I named there just scratch the surface of influential film during this decade, but there's a specific type of movie I want to talk about that seemed most prevalent during the 90s. The PG-13 family film. Now that term sounds a little strange. How can a family movie be rated PG-13? Family films are typically G or PG rated to not have anything too scary, violent, or sexual for younger viewers. I talked about this topic for a little in my What Happened to G-Rated Films video. Go watch it. I'll wait right here. I've discussed how modern superhero films like Guardians of the Galaxy have excessive amount of dick jokes that really aren't subtle by any means, but parents take their kids to these things anyway because action cinema is the rage. These are not the movies I'm referring to though. I'm referring to movies like Mrs. Doubtfire, for example. The story of a man that goes through a divorce and is barely allowed to see his 3 children. So he dresses himself up and poses as a Scottish nanny so he can spend time with his kids without his ex-wife knowing. If you look at that plot piece by piece, the ideas are rather mature. The concept of divorce, custody battles, going against court orders. Some pretty hefty stuff here. So what makes it a family film? You can use the argument that yes, a young family is involved. Many times when children are involved in these types of films, there is a relatable aspect for kids around that age. These kids are handling the fact that their parents live in separate places and aren't together anymore. It's a pretty touchy subject, but one that can be considered common that kids go through, especially during this time period. What else makes it a family film? I think the music score. These 90s family films had such bright and happy music that it gave things more of a playful tone. The score always helps create the vibe and tone of a certain scene, but it was quite frequent you heard these type of orchestra styles in these films. Just listen to this. It's like a little fairy bringing its own charm into the world. Of course, a huge reason this has family appeal is Robin Williams.
And you can hang out of your shorts like, oh my God.
Breathtaking. Yes, Robin Williams, a king of family films, all the way from Jumanji to the animated Aladdin. His over-the-top and silly mannerisms throughout Mrs. Doubtfire is the obvious star here. The appeal of him can be enjoyed from any age. A man dressed to look like an old Scottish woman dancing while vacuuming can be funny to just about anyone. Williams has an amazing talent of being both a comedic gem that can make anyone laugh, but can also pull off these dramatic scenes. Showing his heart being broken when he can't see his children, all the way to the quick wit as Mrs. Doubtfire and creating this person's life story just shows how brilliant he is. That's how you can watch this with your family, the playful atmosphere with the music along with the relatable family characters and Williams' irresistible charm. Hello! So that's just one example. What about a similar one?
My mom's a teacher.
And your dad?
My dad, he's a liar.
Liar Liar is the story of workaholic lawyer Fletcher who loves his son but doesn't get to spend too much time with him, so he makes up any lie that he can of why he hasn't been around. His son then makes a birthday wish so that his father can't lie for 24 hours. The wish comes true, and now Fletcher can't lie during his biggest case yet. How can this be a family film? A PG-13 comedy filled with plenty of swearing and quite a bit of implied sex?
Do it to me. Oh, do it to me. Harder.
Oh my.
Not something you see in your normal family comedies, but again, the similarities to Mrs. Doubtfire. While many can argue the differences between these two actors, I view them quite comparable. Like Williams, Jim Carrey's become a household name with his over-the-top silly antics that have a juvenile yet widespread appeal. Story involving relatable children? Check. Charming musical score? Check. Silly actor that appeals to both children and adults with their style of humor? Double check. So we have our crazy silly actors that appeal to both adults and children. What about movies that use a sense of
imagination?
Yeah, that. 1991's The Addams Family is an interesting example of a PG-13 family film because it's a remake of a wacky 1960s sitcom which was based on the comic of the same name. The story of the strange Addams family with the love-infatuated parents Morticia and Gomez, the grim children Wednesday and Pugsley, witchy grandmama, crazy Uncle Fester, and their always loyal butler Lurch live in a modern-day society where some may consider their ways of living to be rather odd. Where is my Addams merch, people? The fascination of the Addams family is their admiration for the dark and abysmal, but it's said with such normalcy, it's actually quite funny.
She was burned as a witch in 1706. They say she danced naked in the town square and enslaved a minister.
Really?
Oh, yes. Don't worry. We've told Wednesday, college first.
They act different but are still quite a loving and, at least in their eyes, a normal family. That's why the characters work. This is a fantasy. While grim and can have some frightening images, it's done in such a comedic way, the characters and the things that they do aren't that scary compared to actual horror movies. Fearful fantasy, I'll call this. Addams Family? Fearful fantasy. Beautiful woman hiding under my bed at 1 a.m.? Fearful fantasy. I'm going to look at one more movie here, and it's probably the one that you're expecting because it's arguably one of the most famous films of the decade. No, that's R-rated. No, damn it, it's Jurassic Park! While Spielberg made some incredibly powerful films this decade, like Saving Private Ryan and Schindler's List, the one that no doubt has the biggest widespread enjoyment by everyone is Jurassic Park. I love dinosaurs. I read about them in zoo books, I played with these things as a kid, and I enjoyed that TV show that was a little terrifying looking back at it now. So of course this type of story has a massive audience, getting to see dinosaurs in film like we've never seen them before, especially when all we had prior was this. Spielberg is a master of playing on the fantasies and fears that both adults and children think about. This one simply being, what if we were with dinosaurs? What would happen if they walked among us? Could we coexist? I don't want to give too much away, but... No, we can't.
Spared no expense.
Like the Addams Family, the scenes that are happening are a bit frightening, but not like full-on horror movies. And compared to Liar Liar, the score can really help ease during those down moments. Such beauty, such grace. Maybe it's my Xanax kicking in, I'm not sure. Jurassic Park became a phenomenon that adults as well as their children can turn on to enjoy the majesty that this amazing man gave us. Mwah! Thank you, sir. Thank you. So you may be asking, why did I choose this specific decade? The late 80s had their share of PG-13 related family movies. Why did I specifically talk about the 90s? Well, it's a little more than just because it's the decade I was born in. The 90s was arguably the biggest culture shift America had seen at that time, full of technological advancements in computers with the internet, sex scandals and politics, and topics that were considered taboo before were now being discussed a little more freely, like homosexuality and race relations. These types of things were discussed in the movies created during this time period to show this change. With certain adult topics becoming more appropriate, I see it was only fitting that things that were deemed too much for kids before became a little more okay in this decade as well. The concept of divorce was a topic used in the movies I brought up, which was not a normal discussion, but something that eventually was to be addressed. I think it's something that we as a society currently have taken a page from. We now have children's shows with gay parents and things like Sesame Street showing the characteristics of someone with autism. To me, these are positives. This shows that kids can handle a bit more than we give them credit for. Family entertainment can have things that can make one sometimes uncomfortable, but as time goes, I think you can know the difference between what is real and what is just fearful fantasy. So what's a movie that you watched with your family that maybe wasn't the most appropriate at the time? Let me know in the comments below. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel for more content, and hey, you can tell me what I should discuss next. Thanks everybody!